In this video, I'm going to go over all the basic tools and panels and menu items in Photoshop. It's a pretty big program, but if you know how to use just some of the basic stuff, you can do a lot. Okay, so if you want to create, you double-click Photoshop to open it. This is what you're going to see. It'll show you all your recent images you had open or recent files. You can open something you've already been working on. You can create a new one here, or you can just open from these thumbnails something you've been working on. So this looks good, so let's open this. Oh, okay, so it tells us cannot open the selected item because the file could not be found. So that must mean I probably deleted it from where it was. So let's just drag and drop an image. Let's work on this cat. So I'm just going to drag it, drop it into Photoshop. That's the easiest way to get it in there for something you already have. Okay, so these here on the left are all your basic tools you're going to use. Most of what you're going to do is going to be right here. This moves an image around. This, I'm just going to skip the ones that we aren't going to use a lot. This is where you're going to crop something. You can see in all these tools, if you hover over them, it kind of tells you what it is in this new version. I'm sure there's a setting you can click on to tell it to stop doing that if you want to. You can also see the little triangle in the bottom right corner. If you left click and hold, it'll pop out, open this little flyaway menu, and give you a couple other alternate options for that tool that are related to that tool. So for instance, this brush tool, if I hold on that, the brush and the magic wand and the quick select, or excuse me, this is the quick selection tool. You can click on that. The magic wand is pretty similar. The quick selection tool is cool. It lets you kind of highlight things, certain pixels that are similar, and do stuff with them. Alright, so this is the crop tool. You'll use that sometimes. The eyedropper tool to select a color that you want. Say I want to do something with this green of this cat's eye. I'm going to click the eyedropper tool, click it, and then you can see it's selected here in my colors. The Band-Aid tool has a couple other options. Some of these you'll use once you get deeper into Photoshop to kind of fix things. The brush tool, probably won't use a lot. This is the eraser tool. You're going to use that one probably quite a bit. The one I use most is the magic eraser to erase a big chunk of the background at the same time, to get rid of all the pixels that are similar or the same from what Photoshop can see. The other one you use here quite a bit is the regular eraser tool. You can see you can have it a circle or a square or whatever. Once you click on a tool, you'll see that this stuff up here changes. These are all your settings for that particular tool. So say if I was on my quick selection tool, I have these options. If on my eraser tool, I have these options. So I can change the opacity. So when I erase it, it only erases about 50% of it. If I want to put it back up, I do that. So that just changes all your options here. If I want to make it smaller or change the hardness or softness, I can do that here. Now, a quick trick is that if you have your eraser or a brush or something that, is a circle or a square, if you want to increase or decrease the size, instead of going up here every time to the size and manually doing it, your keyboard shortcut are the brackets on your keyboard to the right of the letter P. The one on the left makes it smaller. The one on the right makes it bigger. This is your gradient tool. A couple other things. The pen tool you probably won't use unless you're pretty comfortable in Photoshop to make lines and stuff like this that it's showing you. Your text tool or type tool, you can just add text with it. You'll just click on it, click where you want to put it, and start typing. And then you can have all your settings up here to change all your fonts, change your color, and whatnot. This is the direct selection tool. You're mostly going to use that with the pen tool if you're doing something. Here's the shape tool. You'll use this a lot, and you can see it's got a flyaway menu with all these different shapes. You'll just click it, make your shape. If you want to go back to a square, left click and hold down and do your square, and you've got your square. A cool tip is to, if you're making a square, well, I want it to be a perfect square, you're going to hold down Shift on your keyboard and drag it. So see, even if I'm dragging straight down, it's making it a perfect square. Same thing with a circle. Shift constrains your proportions. Your magnifying glass you're going to use a lot. So when you first click on it, it's the plus sign to zoom in, and you can see it starts to look pixelated. It's because you're zooming in. If you want to zoom back out, you're going to hit hold the Alt key and click, and that's going to zoom you out. Okay, so this right here shows you what color is selected. So if I was to paint something with a brush, it would be, should be this turquoise color, which it is. You can see, you're like, well, it's not really the turquoise color. That's because my opacity is at 33% here. So you always want to check your settings if you're doing something out of the ordinary. Now you can see it's the actual fully saturated color. Say I don't want that there, I'm going to do Control Z to undo it. Okay, so these are your main menu functions. You'll use these a little bit. You can obviously go to File, Save, or you can use your keyboard shortcuts, which are right here, which if you can memorize some of these, it makes things a lot faster. I would definitely memorize Control Z for undo, Control Shift S for save as, so you're not always having to go back up here. You've got your edit stuff, image, you can adjust color and hue and all that kind of stuff, change the color mode, do stuff to your layers. All that is just your main menu stuff. Over here we've got our color panel, our swatches panel for our colors. This guy up here is pretty useful. In some older Photoshop programs, older versions of Photoshop, it only lets you do Control Z or undo once, which is not fun. So you would have to go up here and delete all of these things to get it back to, say, 3 steps ago. Say, okay, I want to get it to where I don't have this big blue thing, you would have to do that. So that's one thing if you're having issues with Control Z, or if you have a million of them and you don't want to undo them. This is your history panel. Shows you every single move that you've done. This right here is important. Oh, if you want to hide this, you just do these little arrows that hides it. If you are thinking that something probably has more options you want to mess with, always look at the little hamburger menu. That usually has some good stuff in there if you can't find what you need, but you know it's somewhere in there. Okay, we've got our properties, so whatever we're clicked on, it's going to show us the properties of that layer. Adjustments, if you wanted to do something like brighten up the photo, darken up the photo, all those kinds of things you can do here. Make it black and white. You can do that. Okay, so now you can see in this layers panel, I did those couple things. I changed the brightness and I made it black and white, so it adds each of those changes as a layer. That's what Photoshop does. Every little thing is accounted for. That's what kind of can make it overwhelming. So that's another way to undo what you did. Say, oh no, I don't want it black and white. You're just going to click on that layer and hit delete. Now you can see he's not black and white anymore. Say, oh no, I don't like that, the brightness that I did. Just click that layer and delete it. So say you're doing something like adding text to the cat's picture. I'm going to add text. I'm going to type, this is the cat. This move tool, see the text gets cut off. Well, why is it cut off? It's just off the canvas. So you're just going to click on that text and drag it to where you want it. Let's just say we're going to put it here. All right, so now you can see we have 2 layers. This is your layers panel. So it's going to show you all this stuff, all the different layers. These little eyeballs mean that that layer is showing. If you want to just focus on the picture right now, you don't want to have this text being in your way, you're just going to click the eyeball and that text will go away, so to speak. It's not gone, you didn't delete it, it's just not showing it right now. You can do that for all of them or none of them. These right here are just kind of quick tools to add a text layer, add an adjustment layer, add another image, stuff like that. I don't use that a whole lot. That's the other thing about Photoshop. There's 10 million different ways to do one thing. So just find the way you like to do it, find the fastest way for you, and stick with that. Okay, so this lock you see here on the image that I opened with, that means the layer is locked and you can't really do anything to that actual image. You can just add masks and stuff. If you want to unlock it, just click the lock and it's unlocked. That's pretty easy. That's pretty much it. So you've got all your main menu stuff here, your main tools, and then once you click on each tool, your different options for that tool. Over here you've got all your layers and your adjustments. And that's pretty much an overview of it.